Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be telling my birth story. There is no video involved. I did not have a chance to videotape it, but I will explain it to y'all. I might be able to throw in a pic or two, nothing graphic, just of him as a newborn. I'm gonna figure out how exactly I can do that, and if I can, if I keep looking down, I am feeding the baby right now. He is right beside me, and today he's having carrots, corn, and pumpkin. And also, if I keep looking down, I did have some notes written down because honestly it was a blur. I don't remember a lot of it, and I have to say I would do a lot of things differently, but at the same time I am grateful he is here today. He is 8.5 months old. He'll be 9 months on October 4th. So let's go ahead and get started. So we did go into the hospital on January 3rd, and I did go in for a scheduled induction. Where I live in regards to where the hospital is, I am about an hour away. So he did offer to do an induction just in case my water did break at home and we weren't able to get to the hospital in time. This is my first baby, so again, it all was really a guessing game, and we really didn't know what would happen, so it would be better to just do an induction, and he was perfectly comfortable with doing it. And this is my first baby, so honestly I did just go along with it. And I mean, who can I blame? I was ready for him to come out and I was excited. So I didn't have a problem with that at all. So because we went in at nighttime, I did receive the Cervidil a little bit later in the evening. It did take me, I believe, quite a few hours to get situated and settled. I was Strep B positive, so immediately I was hooked up to some antibiotics, but I was still able to get up and walk around if I needed to use the restroom or I just wanted to stand up for a little bit. All they had to do was come unplug the monitor on my stomach, so it really wasn't that big of a deal. But I will say it did suck to have to already be hooked up to a machine, and that also includes having an induction. I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on it, but that's what I was hooked up to, a monitor right away. So if anyone else has had an induction, go ahead and comment down below if you're immediately hooked up to an IV, or if it's just because I was Strep B positive, because I'm not entirely too sure. I just know because of my specific situation I was. So I did get the Cervidil. It is a pill that they go ahead and insert. You can go ahead and Google for the rest. To be honest, it was very uncomfortable, but it was really quick and really simple. And I'm glad I got it because it did help me a little bit. And to be honest, I was only dilated to, I believe, a 1 or a 2. I think it was like around a 2 by the end of the night, early morning. Around 1 a.m. it was unbearable. I don't know what this baby decided to do, but it felt like a head, a butt, a back, both feet, both legs, both arms and hands were somehow, is that good? He's loving his dinner. Were somehow all in my rib cage, and I didn't know that could happen. And I was in so much pain. I remember sitting there in the hospital bed, and I don't know if this is a good example, but when you are pregnant and they're all shoved up in there, all I could do was try to stretch out my back as much as I could, because if I did any sort of hunching down, it was unbearable. So I did receive a medication through my IV. I am not entirely sure what that medication is called. If I can find out the name of it, I'll link it down below, or it might just be a different medicine that is similar to the one I got. But I'm not kidding you, whatever that medicine was, it's intense. It's really intense. And if anyone else has gotten it before, please go ahead and comment it down below, just so I'm interested to know the name. And for baby number 2, I probably won't get it again unless I'm in excruciating level 10 pain, because within a matter of minutes, not hours, minutes, I was completely knocked out, just out like a light bulb. So I honestly don't know what I mean, it took the pain away. It really did. But I honestly could tell you and admit that I would not get that again unless I was at a 10 in pain. And to be honest with you, I really think that that played a part in stalling my labor. I do believe it did. I believe the Cervidil, the medication, the pain medicine I got, and the epidural, and the Pitocin that I'll talk about later on, just everything kind of all at once really did stall my labor. So I got the medication, and then I received another round of that same heavy medication a few hours later. I don't know the exact times. I was pretty stoned. I was pretty drugged. And that's just what happens sometimes when you're in labor, when you're having a baby. I had so much medication in my body, I couldn't open my eyes to get the second round of medication. I remember opening them for a second. I knew the nurse, excuse me, hi. I knew the nurse was in front of me, and then I closed my eyes, and that's about it. So again, I'm just looking down at my notes to make sure I'm getting everything that I can remember. So after I got that second round, it was January 4th, and in the early morning, afternoon, I can't remember, excuse me, learn how to spit bubbles at me, and it's not great when he's got food too. So around that time, January 4th, I want to say it was morning, I did receive my epidural. My boyfriend was allowed to be in the room with me. He was not allowed to touch me. I know every hospital is different. Sorry about the noise in the background. I know every hospital is different. Some people say that their boyfriends weren't even allowed in the room, and honestly, that would have just freaked me out. I don't know if I could have done that. But he was allowed in the room. He was allowed to sit in front of me. So my hospital allowed him to sit in front of me. He was not allowed behind me because it was considered a medical procedure that needed to be done. To be honest with you, it was really quickly. My epidural was nothing like I ever thought it would be. To be honest with you, I was scared to death. But it really felt like just a normal shot, just in the middle of my back. And once that shot was over, all I had to do was remain sitting still, and that's when they actually placed the epidural in me. I believe the stinging pain, like a shot-like pain, is the numbing medicine that they put in you beforehand. But honestly, it was a breeze, and I guess I got really, really lucky. I'm not sure how, because I was in a lot of pain, but I did not have any contractions. Waylon was not moving. I was not in any pain from the baby while I was getting my epidural, which I guess is a blessing in disguise. Probably my second baby, if I were to have one, it's going to be complete chaos if that's how it works. But so I did get my epidural in the middle of that day, and then all we did was wait. All we did was wait and wait and wait for most of the day, and it did suck because I was starving. I couldn't have anything to eat, but I was allowed liquids. I drank so much Sprite and so much water. But it is great though, because once you get an epidural, you do get a catheter in as well. And I am a type of person, sorry if this is TMI, but when I was pregnant, I was peeing around the clock every minute, every hour, and to just be able to lay in bed and not have that feeling like you need to use the restroom for most of the day is amazing. If you are pregnant right now, I promise you it's one of the best feelings ever. I didn't even notice it. I was relaxed. And I did have the type of epidural where I did have a button that I could press if I wanted to get more medicine. It would never give me too much medicine. It stayed at a constant flow, which was great, because there was some times where I did press that button. Not constantly, but just a couple times. Later that day though, we did run into some complications. Now this is the part that gets super blurry, so bear with me if I'm kind of losing my words or trying to think for a second. But Waylon wasn't receiving oxygen, and at one moment I had on an oxygen mask, which it wasn't that bad, and it wasn't that scary. They told me it was pretty common and nothing to worry about. He's just sitting in his little chair over here. We just got done eating. But after that, I was able to take it off for a little bit, and he was fine. And later on, he started to go down again, and they also could not find his heartbeat. My monitors weren't sliding off, they weren't in the wrong place. They tried every which way and they could not find his heartbeat. So what I did, or what they did to me, they flipped me over on my left side. And I believe it's the left side. That's the side they tell you, oh, sleep on your left side. I'm not sure. Comment down below if I'm wrong. It's one of your sides. So they did flip me over on my side for a little bit, and they were able to faintly find his heartbeat. And they put me like that for a little bit, and then I was flipped over to my other side, and then flipped back over and back over. I was constantly being flipped over, and at that point I did get a little worried, but I didn't let it show. So I just kind of went with it, and everything went back to normal. Not even 30 minutes later, they come back in, and we do this whole process over again. Now, if anyone wants to know, it's really, really hard to flip a person who is basically paralyzed from your hips down, from your waist down. It's really hard, and I was very uncomfortable because I not only, excuse me, not only did I have no movement in my legs, you actually can wiggle your toes. You really can feel your toes. I couldn't sit here and lift my leg up off the table, but you can still feel everything with the epidural. So what happened is they kept flipping me and flipping me and flipping me, and finally one of the nurses, and I love my nurses, all of my labor and delivery nurses, I went through about 3 rounds of them because they do work 12-hour shifts, I think. But I did go through 3 rounds, and my last nurse, she was so cute and so funny. She was about my age as well. She finally came in and she said, okay, this is it. We have to give you a C-section. We don't have another choice. And I was like, okay. And I mean, I accepted the fact that I needed one and that it was so immediate. And at this point in time, I not only had my labor and delivery nurse in and out trying to figure out what was wrong, I did have 3 other labor and delivery nurses trying to move me. And it was pretty crazy. All the machines were beeping. I was moving. You could see the concern on their faces, but then again, it might be just how they handle things, because this is what they do on a daily basis. So I agreed to it. I said okay. And then I remember she went out of the room, and then everything was fine. They found his heartbeat. They found him on the monitor moving, and they took an ultrasound. Everything looked perfect in the matter of seconds from her being in the room, saying okay, and walking out the door. So they went ahead and got in touch with my doctor, and he's actually in and out of the hospital that I was at because his office is right down the road. So thank God he was there. So I hear horror stories about women who don't even have their original OB in the room delivering their baby, and I would not feel comfortable with that. Kudos to you and shout out to you if you went through that. I don't know if I could do that. I would feel really uncomfortable, but he was there, so everything was fine after that. This must have been maybe 6:15 at night on January 4th. So we waited and waited and waited, and it happened all over again. And it really was a repeating cycle. And it got to the point where I was being flipped over. Everyone was moving monitors. They brought in a new monitor, unplugging things, replugging in things. I was strapped to about 50,000 cords. I had a monitor on my finger. I had stuff on my legs. I had stuff on my face, and I had stuff all around my belly. It was chaotic, and it was chaos, and there was nothing I could do. I just had to sit there and listen to all these beeps and all this doctor language, and it was hard. I'll admit it was hard. And this final part of craziness lasted probably around 6:45, and around that time she did come back in and she says, it's done, you're going in, let's go ahead and get started. And I'll admit my heart kind of sank, because I felt so relieved getting through it the first time. And I know my story isn't catastrophic or extreme, but it's hard when you have to be told by someone you're done. And at this point, again, I was only at 3 centimeters dilated. I'm sorry, I'm not really good at keeping up with this. So once I filled out all of the thousands of paperwork that they make you sign to go into surgery, we were creeping up on 7 o'clock p.m. on January 4th of 2018. And after that, this is the part where I feel like I remember everything. This one little bit, I remember absolutely everything that happened. Everything else, I couldn't tell you. I'd have to have my boyfriend tell you. So what happened was, I was getting prepped for a C-section, and what they do is I had already received my typical epidural, that's what I'm gonna call it, your typical epidural during the day. What they do with a C-section, you get a second epidural. I believe it's called a spinal something. A spinal. I think it's just called a spinal. I'm not exactly sure what it was called, but I was stuck again. That's really all that matters. I had to be stuck again. This time it really wasn't bad at all. I had so many drugs in me. I was so out of it, and just, I was ready. I was like, okay, yeah, So I did get a spinal, that's what I'm gonna call it, a second epidural. And then they had me stay in my gown. I was already in a hospital gown, which was no problem at all. They prepped and make sure that the lower part of your stomach, if you have any like thicker baby hair, or if it's like a black color hair, they will go ahead and take a razor and just shave kind of from like your bikini line up until your belly button. I didn't need that. I really don't have anything there, but they will, you know, come in and they'll check you and make sure, just so that the area is nice and clean. And then I had to drink this half of like a shot glass full of brown liquid, and it was gross. It was so gross, but it takes 2 seconds. And that is, I believe, to help you with your nausea. I'm not sure again, but I swear that's what it's for. So they made me drink that, and I got to put on the hat, and they gave my boyfriend clothes. They gave your significant other, or you are allowed one person in the operating room. And of course I chose him. My mother was there as well, but I wanted him in the room as my preference. So he went ahead and got ready. He totally looked like one of the doctors. It was so cute seeing him in it, and honestly it makes you laugh. And when you are getting prepped for a C-section, you do need a good laugh, and I was glad that I had that. So, and then off I went. I was unplugged from any machines that were hooked up in the room, and off I went. Once they, and this is, it's really hard. It's really hard. Sorry. Once they pull up the sides of your bed and they start to roll you out of the room, and then you have to say see you soon. And because my boyfriend was not allowed to walk with me, he had to stay behind until I was all ready and set to go. It's hard. It's hard going into a major surgery. No matter what kind of surgery it is, it's hard. I did have a major foot surgery when I was about 14, and I cried. I cried the entire time, the entire prep time. And I'll admit, this specific surgery, going into my C-section, the last 30 minutes of chaos right before it, I was so calm, and it's crazy. It's amazing how calm I was. I was scared, but I was calm. And I was ready to do it, and I told myself, I said, you know what? There's only one way out, and this is the way it's going to be. And you're gonna be fine, and everyone's gonna be fine. Your baby's gonna be fine. And I was excited to meet him. It was a very surreal experience. So I went into the room, and it's just, it makes you shiver. Not only because it's 50 degrees in an operating room, but because it's such a surreal experience. I had so many people in that room. I'm not even kidding you. I did text my friend the other day, and I was telling her all these people I had in my room, and I'm gonna try to list it off the top of my head, but I'm not too sure. I had a full team of NICU nurses because again, they couldn't find his heartbeat, and I'm going in for an emergency C-section, and they will bring in lots of people from the NICU. I had a pediatric doctor waiting, I had my doctor waiting, I had my labor and delivery nurses waiting, I had some, I guess, just extra surgical hands waiting. I think it was like 2 or 3 extra people. I had an anesthesiologist who sat by my head the entire time in case I needed anything, and to tell her what was going on, how I was feeling, keeping me up and awake. So, and then I had, God, there was a lot of people in there. I don't know who else was in there, but I know there was more people than that in there. So everyone was on standby, and they, again, with this other epidural, with this second, I call it an epidural, spinal, both, same thing. You are numb from about your chest down. And when I say numb, you are numb, like completely numb. They do have to lift you from your mobile bed, your hospital bed, onto the surgical table, and they will put the tarp up in front of you. I'll have to admit, my chin probably could have touched it. That's how close it was. This big blue tarp, just like a regular tarp you would get at any supply store. And that's when everything started. They did a couple rounds. Can you feel this? Can you feel that? Can you feel this? Can you feel that? And thankfully, I had no problems at all. I said no to absolutely every single one of them. They were great. My anesthesiologist was great. When I told him I felt nauseous, he fixed it. When I told him I was feeling a little drowsy, he fixed it. They want you to be awake and alert during the C-section. At least that's what I was told. And supposedly my boyfriend had came in the room and he sat next to my head, and I was talking to him the entire time. Now, if this shows you how much drugs I had in my system over the course of 48 hours, I had no idea he was there. I had no idea he was in the room. I had no idea I was talking to him right next to me the entire time. I thought I was talking to my anesthesiologist the entire time. You guys, I had so much medicine in my body. You really have to have that plan when you go into the hospital and explain to them what you want and what you don't want. It will make a difference. I promise you. I promise you 110%. Do not accept every single thing they give you. Give it some time, and when the pain gets really bad, then go ahead and take it. I do believe this is exactly why I had a C-section. I feel like if I tried to delete some of the medication out of my body, I could have had a natural birth. But that's okay. He is here, and that's all I care about. And after some very uncomfortable kind of pulling, kind of tugging, lots of doctor words going back and forth, I was just trying to breathe and telling myself, you are fine. It's a very scary experience. Not only you hear all these doctors, you hear all these machines, and your eyes just see blue. They just see a big blue tarp. That's all I could see. So it's pretty scary, and a C-section is really not that bad. It really is not, except for the very end where they actually pull the baby out, because that feels like an elephant shoved his foot up my rib cage. I have no idea how. I'm not into anatomy. I don't really know much of anything about it, but I'm not kidding you. My ribs felt like they were being crushed. It was absolutely so much pressure. And they go, you're gonna feel a little bit of pressure. No, I felt a lot of pressure. It was just horrible. It was horrible. But again, it lasts for about 2 minutes, and then your baby's out. You hear him crying. I did cry. I did cry when I heard him crying. Just because of the whole situation. It was scary, and it was fast and quick and just a lot going on at once. But he did come out perfectly healthy, perfectly fine. He was super blue, but that's okay. And once they started, I do have staples. Not anymore, but I had staples on the outside and I had stitches on the inside. However that works, I'm not sure, but I did have staples on the outside, and I am thankful I had staples on the outside, because my wound healed amazing. It's just one straight line. If you do have a C-section, or if you're coming up to your upcoming first C-section, or your scheduled C-section, the scar will look very purple, very red for quite a few months, but don't be alarmed, that's totally okay. And it was surreal. It happened so fast, and when they started stapling me, I started getting nauseous, and I have never once got to the point of being that nauseous throughout my entire pregnancy, my entire labor, except for that specific moment. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm laying flat on this table and I can't throw up, I'm gonna choke. So a couple big deep breaths and a couple moments of really getting my head together and focusing, and I was done. Everything was taken off the drape. I could finally see in front of me. That was like the best part. Besides the fact that my son was actually born, the best part was being able to see. I felt like my vision was cut off for a little bit, and that's a terrible feeling, but it was great. I got to see everything. It was a mess. An operating room after a procedure is quite scary, but that's okay. I didn't see any blood, no nothing. So I was wheeled away back into the labor and delivery room, my same room. They do use it as a recovery room. I was in there for about 2 hours, and that's when my mother and grandfather could come in, and my boyfriend's parents could come in. I didn't have any other visitors besides them at that moment. The first hour though is strictly for mom and dad, and to help the baby eat for the first time and for us to realize what's going on. But after that first initial hour, you are allowed to have some visitors, not a lot. But after that, they let me hold the baby while I was wheeled to the mother and baby unit. And I stayed there for 5 days in total. The second night was just, it was a horror story. It was. You cannot walk. For the first night, you are hooked up to a catheter. You are hooked up to a little heartbeat, not a heartbeat thing. It's a plastic thing that literally sits right on your nose, and I wanted to rip it off, but I know I couldn't. It is for patients who had just undergo a surgery. Major surgery. It is to make sure that they do not fall into a deep enough sleep where they cannot wake themselves back up because of all the medication that I was on for pain. But I survived. I survived that first night, and when I got up in the morning, when I woke up in the morning, a nurse came in, or a tech came in. There's techs, nurses, and doctors. So the tech came in and she said, okay, it's time to change the sheets. Just in case my wound started bleeding. I was hot and sweaty. I mean, the hot flashes are just, they're real. They're real. So she came in and took the catheter out and helped me stand up. And I have never been so terrified to get out of bed. Because I just had been sliced open, basically. And so she took all of I had pressure wraps on my calves. So she took those off. She took everything off. It was great. It was just amazing. I did have my same epidural still in my back, and it was kind of the same concept, push the button for more. You're not gonna get an overload of medicine, but I did have that in, so she did take that out, took the catheter out, like I said, and we were good to go. Then I was able to eat a liquid breakfast. Sorry if you can hear that noise in the background, just some household stuff that's going on. I was able to eat all liquid breakfast, and if anyone knows, having chicken broth or beef broth early in the AM is not very fun. But luckily that was my only liquid meal that I had to eat. By lunchtime I was able to have solid foods, and I could not be any more happier. So then that day went by perfectly fine. I was able to walk. I had to get up and walk every hour to 2 hours. I was not allowed to push my baby because of a fall risk, because the bassinet was on wheels. So my mom and my boyfriend took turns walking the halls with me, and it was super important that you get up and walk to get the blood flow back so that you don't get blood clots, especially with having a C-section. And then, like I said, the second night, it was horrible. I'll admit it was horrible. Just being able to get up and with a crazy crying newborn, cluster feeding, almost every 30 minutes, it was very hard. But once that third day came, I had no problem at all. I felt like a master. But we still had lots of learning to do. And that third, fourth day they went by really quickly. Again, I had to walk every hour. I had to sit down. I could not push myself, even though I really wanted to. When I did take showers, I do recommend that you have your significant other or friend, a close friend or family member stay in the shower, like the front shower area, bathroom with you, because trying to wash my hair, sometimes I did feel dizzy from all the medication, the pain medicine. So it's nice to have someone there. What I did, my significant other did stay in the bathroom with me while I did shower, and while my mom just kind of sat there with the baby. So she was on baby watch every time I had to leave the room, which was perfectly fine. So I do recommend that. I recommend that you don't touch your wound. You just kind of let soap and water just run down. It doesn't burn, it doesn't sting. It cleans it out, and it worked perfect for me. What I did, I dried every part of my body, and then I took there with the towel and I kind of shaked the towel. I did not physically touch the wound with a towel while showering. I just kind of aired it out, and I wore a robe the entire time, a robe. And I went home on the 5th day with extremely high-waisted leggings, a t-shirt, and a brand new tiny baby. He was born 7 pounds 5 ounces at 7:30 p.m. on January 4th. If I did forget to mention that, like I said, trying to explain this video is a really hard thing to do, but I did want to share it with everyone because I know it's very common nowadays for women to go in for a C-section, a lot more common than it was back then. And I just wanted to really make this video to show you that you can do it, and it's scary and it's hard, but once you get through it, I am 8 months out from a major surgery, and I could be doing cartwheels and jumping jacks and be perfectly fine. It really does put a new emphasis on being stronger and having willpower. So I just wanted to again make this video to show everyone out there that has to have an up-and-coming C-section or has just recently had an emergency C-section. You can do it. It's hard and it's hard work, and some days are harder than others, and it's okay to cry, and it's okay to feel pain, and it's okay to say, I have to stop, I have to sit down. Do not push yourself when you do have a C-section. You will regret it. Trying to put that as lightly as I can, but to be honest, just relax. Just relax. I didn't relax, and I regret it. So that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry this video was kind of a mess. But also today was a mess. I am getting a brand new camera. I did get the Canon G7X Mark II, whatever that new one is, the new vlogging camera that people are using. I did get that with a brand new tripod, so my setup will be a little bit differently on Wednesday. Hopefully it's a lot better quality than my iPhone. I have an iPhone X and I really don't like this quality. I pay too much for this phone. But thank you so much for watching, and please go ahead and click that subscribe button down below. I will be posting Sundays and Wednesday mommy and lifestyle videos, so I'd love for you to go ahead and give me that thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you on Wednesday.